Cool beans.
Welcome to Shawn and Carter have a podcast. My name is Shawn.
And I'm Carter.
And Carter, I have a rather embarrassing technological failure tale to tell you.
Oh no, what's going on, man?
All these last weeks and months you've been talking about, like every so often we've talked about Android system updates and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I have an Android phone. Thinking about switching to iOS, not really satisfied, blah, blah, blah. Well, the past couple weeks, I suddenly realized that a lot of the functions on my phone were seeming to fail or not seem to work. And I realized that my phone has not updated itself since Android 2.2, which is a very long time ago.
That was a very long time ago. Although I think that I'm crazy people don't like tweet or anything or correct me. I know that this is not accurate-ish, but I'm close. I think like 30% of Android phones are still on 2.2.
Why would that be?
There's a couple of reasons. One, actually, there's not a couple of reasons. There's one reason. The OEMs that make these phones, a lot of times, all of the time, they have to push the update because they've skinned it and like done their little whatever, put like moto blur on
Okay.
mobile
Well,
phones.
I get that, but why would my wife's phone, which is exactly the same, have received all of her updates?
Well, I don't know. Another failure.
That was actually how I
and-
realized that something was wrong.
because like she was doing whizzy stuff.
Her
What
phone
did
rang and the UI looked different from mine, and I was like, why does it have green and red on, and why, what? And I like started getting suspicious, and I looked at other functions of her phone, and her email program had changed, and her marketplace looked different, and I was like, what is going on? And I clicked around and I found what was going on. The way I had to fix it was by factory resetting my phone.
Well, that makes total sense, of course. What do you know? What version of Android it updated you to? Did you just go to 2.3?
4.0 something.
4?
Yep.
Oh, so you got like the real new stuff.
As soon as I factory reset it, it immediately connected and downloaded it.
That's awesome. Well, and HTC, like you've got some sort of HTC version of 4.0, right?
Right.
Like they do their little stuff.
Yep.
Interesting. Well, my phone and my iPad just like get updates.
I'm sorry. It's Android version 2.3, but the software number is 4.0, and previously that was at like 1.
Oh, okay. So you don't. Okay, so I didn't. Android version 4 is ice cream sandwich, and it's like all whizzy and new, and people
It's
like
on
John
those
Gruber.
4G like Samsung phones.
Yeah, it's not like the Nexus phones, the Google phones.
Boo-hoo.
Boohoo. Yeah, people who I read and trust John Gruber have been and like Josh Topolsky at The Verge have been saying really good things about Android 4.0. Like it finally is like not painful to use.
Well, I definitely noticed you talked about how like responsive the UI is on OS devices all the time. I noticed a huge quality upgrade with my touchscreen.
Yeah, every Android version they get a little bit better at that. It's just makes me think of Minecraft actually. It's just sort of like, I wish that it had been fully baked when they released
Incremental
it, like
improvements.
iOS. Right, like don't release it until it's done. Don't release it until it works the way that you would want it to work. Have you seen the YouTube video of the baby? It's like two different clips of a baby. One of him or her playing with an iPad, and then another of him or her with a magazine. Have you seen this?
No.
No? I'll try and find it. It's really interesting. I'll tie this back to Android in a second, I promise. So there's this baby who's playing with an iPad, like really
Being
successfully.
brainwashed in the ways of Steve Jobs, like we'll talk about later.
Yes. Oh, yes. Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, he's getting training for school. I'm deciding this baby's a he. I'm tired of saying he or she already. So he's playing with an iPad, and he's like scrolling through different views and like playing movies and like making little like finger painty drawings and stuff, right? And he's just flicking around and using it, and it's working correctly. And I guess it's not a baby; it's about like a toddler, like a 2-year-old. And then the next scene is the baby like sort of in the same area, but with a magazine in front of him, and he's trying to scroll the page on the
I already
magazine.
knew
He's
this
trying
was
to like
coming.
flicking through it, and it's not working. And he's like, he keeps looking up at the mom. It's like, wait, it's like broke, don't work. Like, what is wrong with this magazine? Why isn't it working? And then he goes back to the iPad, and he's like, yes, this is the way the world is supposed to be. I would be interested to know if there would be a significant difference for like that baby or for that, like people like really really young children in successfully using iOS devices versus Android devices because of the touch tracking and how better it is on iOS devices, how much more responsive they are. Like,
And how much of a difference does it make?
right, exactly. Like for you and me, like we've grown up in, a world of computers and point and click and computers which were horribly latent and,
We've moved through such an evolution.
I mean, where I remember applications and programs in Windows 3.1 where I would double click to open them and I would leave and come back because it would take like that long to launch them. So if we're using an Android device and it's sort of stuttering, we're like, oh well, it's just not very responsive. But like, would a baby be like, oh, it's broken, like this doesn't work,
How did we get
here? I think we started talking about Star Wars.
I think that was it.
So follow up.
Follow up from last week.
Follow up from last week. Well, things that happened between last week and this week. I only have one thing, and it's our hashtag, which people have not been using. You should tweet at us with the hashtag SCHP. It says so right on the YouTube video. Are you watching it right now? Just look at the bottom. It says tweet at us with the hashtag SCHP.
That's not completely accurate. People have been using it. They're just not using it for us.
That's true. And what they've been using it for a lot. So, like, this is one of the, like, an accident of history that we decided to name this podcast, Shawn and Carter have a podcast, and use SCHP as the hashtag.
It seemed so random.
Doesn't it? Doesn't it?
It doesn't sound like a word or anything, so I figured I was probably going to be safe.
Ship. I don't know. There's no pronunciation of it. It's like XKCD. There is no pronunciation of it. Loyal listeners will know that we've had an ongoing Twitter war with the South Carolina Highway Patrol. Why did we not research this before?
Actually, we did. I opened the hashtag and I did not see any tweets for like a month or something. I was like, this does not look very frequent. I think we're probably in the clear. But no.
I forget if I said this on the air or just to Shawn at some point in the past week, but it seems like, if I'm repeating this, I apologize. It seems like SCHP has just been used more generally ever since we started tweeting with it. Like a lot more.
It's our curse and our blessing.
Right. Well, this week, apparently, Republican presidential candidate Ron Paul had a hot air balloon that he had up on like some major highway, like hovering over a major highway in South Carolina where there is a primary this Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. And it was distracting drivers, so the South Carolina Highway Patrol asked his campaign to take it down, and it blew up the SCHP hashtag in ways that I've never seen before. SCHP requests Ron Paul take down hot air balloon. So that's
we thought you were asking us to get political at first.
Yeah. Well, if you want us to weigh in on that, I'm in favor of hot air balloons.
I'm in favor of them not distracting drivers, so
I guess I'm in favor of that too. That's all I got.
But there was at least one random question from Mr. Ronald in there, right?
There was at least one. And his question is specifically, if you could go back to any day in your life and relive it forever, what day would it be and why? And then in parentheses he says, specific date or general idea. So he's not requiring us to say, February 16th, 1997. And this is
hey, that was my day. No.
I almost said February 14th because I was thinking of an upcoming conference, which is ending on Valentine's Day. I have a conference on Valentine's Day.
Nice.
Bummer.
How romantic.
Is February 14th, 2012 the day that in Ghostbusters 2 that the psychic says the world will end on?
Or
is it 1990 something?
I don't know.
I'll look it up and I'll let everyone know next week.
I'm not a Ghostbusters aficionado.
I'm a fan.
I know Don't Cross the Streams, and maybe that's it.
Do you know, let's see what happens when we take away the puppy?
Oh, no, I don't.
Well,
now I really feel like I need to refresh myself.
Maybe we should make that part of the podcast, or maybe you should just watch them because they're important.
Maybe I should just watch them, yeah.
Right. Well, being us, we're going to put a little spin on Ron's question.
Because we always disagree with his premises.
Exactly. So Ron's basically saying, like, hey, if you could do this, which one would you pick? And we're like, we wouldn't want to do that. So
This is not something we would do.
Right. We're going to say if we had to do this. So do you know? Do you have a
Yeah, I got a pretty good day. Excuse me.
Lay it on us.
2 years ago, Alicia and I went to Maine on vacation, and our first day there, I took her up a trail that probably should not have been her first trail, like her first major trail, and it was kind of dangerous and vertical, and she was not having a great time. And when we got to the top, her attitude like completely changed. And that was just like one of those like, wow, I totally love my wife moments. Because like she was just making me so frustrated. And then she changed into my best friend again. And I was like, oh, I would never not want her to be with me as angry as she can be.
Aww.
I'm getting emotional. Guys, bringing it out of me.
Bringing it out, jeez.
Anyway, I like my wife, so that was like our first big vacation away, and that was a good memory.
Oh, I like that. But bearing in mind, you would live that day forever.
Yeah. Well, he made us.
Yeah, Ron. Jeez. All right. I don't know of any day that I would want to live forever, and I'll say this. So I was going to be a philosophy professor, so I had to read I had to read me a little Nietzsche, and there's a concept in his works called eternal return. He tried to sketch out some sort of like cosmology for this, like how it would actually work, but he didn't. It didn't really matter to him, like if this was actually the state of affairs. His idea was that the universe was set up in such a way that like it would begin and everything would happen, and then it would end, and the way that it ended would cause it to begin again, and everything would happen the same way.
Okay. Over
and over and over again.
There's a Jules Verne short story that demonstrates that actually.
Yeah, maybe he read that short story. I don't know. He was writing this in the late 1800s, so that's a similar time period. And he was also pulling a little bit from like Vedic texts, like from like India and those sorts of ideas. That sort of inkling has been around in humanity for a long time in many different forms. Mm-hmm. So he wasn't trying to say like this is the way that the universe is actually set up, but he was sort of engaging in some thought experiments of if you knew that you were going to have to do the same thing over and over again, what would you do differently in the future, or what would you wish you could do differently, knowing that you would have to do it over and over again? Like, how could you adjust your morality, and how could you adjust the course of your life to live in a way that you'd be comfortable living over and over again, and forever? Would
you be a better person knowing that you had to do all of that for eternity?
Exactly. Like, and he was sort of getting at the notion of there might not be free will, and you'll have to do everything over and over again anyway. But knowing that, like, if you somehow got the knowledge that you would have to do things over and over again, would that substantively change the course of your life every time? And are you the type of person who could accept that kind of knowledge and turn into a useful tool or useful technology for your life? Which is always interesting to me. So hopefully, if you're a young member of our audience, maybe you should ponder that. If you had to do everything in your life over and over again.
All of our young members just fell asleep.
Oh, come
They were like,
on.
philosophy, what?
Lame. I want to talk about Hulk. All right. Well, so I'm going to pick them all back up right now by talking about antitrust law.
Right, that's how we're gonna do it.
Well, we have some older members of our audience. Andy.
We have a very intelligent audience. I did not mean to assume that anyone would be bored by Nietzsche.
Nietzsche. Of course. He's a very exciting philosopher.
Hey, I'm into philosophy. I'm just ragging on you.
I know. That's okay. So there's this company out there, and their slogan is "Don't be evil."
Okay, sounds like a friendly corporation.
Right? And that their brand is all fun letters with colors, and they make products for the people. It's for kids.
Okay. Revolutionaries, some might say.
Revolutionary, right? Okay. Talking about Google. And we mentioned this on the podcast that wasn't. I'm just going to call it that forever now, the podcast that wasn't.
The Lost Podcast.
The Lost Podcast. There are only 2 people in the world who've ever heard it.
You know what? It still is in the fractured state on my hard drive.
So we could potentially, maybe one day, long-term project, listen to it in 10-second intervals and try and put it together.
Like a big freaking puzzle.
Maybe we should give it to... would you be willing to give it to a willing member of the audience to piece it back together?
Maybe. I don't see why not.
I don't think there's nothing in there that's of a sensitive nature. If anyone wants it and thinks they have some skills at reconstructing stereo mixed Audacity files,
Temporary files.
Temporary Audacity files, and wants to restore the Lost Podcast, you should let Shawn know.
There is an automatic recovery tool. We've already tried that, so don't just think that will work.
You'd have to do something different. You'd either have to use some scripting skills to try and piece it back together in some way that this recovery program couldn't, or
they're organized by hash decimal. What is hexadecimal?
Hexadecimal.
Which does not sort on a Windows computer.
Right, and we figured that it's the case, right, that it's a date stamp, not a time stamp.
Yes.
Is that right?
I don't know if it's sorted down to the second. Anyway, let's get back to Google.
Good Lord, man. I am all over the place today. So this was like a 20-minute segment on the Lost Podcast. It's probably I don't want to belabor it this time.
We're gonna reel it in a little.
Yeah. So Google launched this thing called Search Plus Your World.
Shawn, what a mouthful, Carter.
Search. Exactly. I think I said that it is almost as bad as iTunes in the cloud. Apple's brand for their new online web offering.
So at least we know every company struggles sometimes.
Yeah. Names are hard. I haven't seen it too much, but you've actually had some complaints, or you've noticed it coming up in your search results.
I had
right?
one that actually messed me up for the first time. And there is a very easy option to turn it off, by the way. In case you're curious, after you do a search, I don't know if you can turn it off before you search, but after you do a search, under the search bar and search button, there is a little two-way toggle switch that can turn it off. So you can get rid of it as of now. But anyway, I went to search for something. I don't even remember what I was searching for, but it was something related to Minecraft, and I put it in, and the first result that came up was me. It was a video of mine, and I was like, holy crap, I'm the first return result on this. And then I started looking at the other stuff, and then I was like, wait a second, and I went back up there and turned off Plus Your World, and I went away. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes more sense.
It makes more sense and is less awesome. Sorry.
I am a very highly returned result on a few things, which is pretty awesome. World Edit tutorial, yeah. I'm the first return result.
Number 1. Yeah, I know. It's got 50,000 views or something. It's
yep.
A big video.
Yay. I should really redo it.
Oh, well, part 2. I always search your name when I'm trying to find your channel because I don't know how to use YouTube very well.
Nice, so you're helping my page rank.
Oh, well, good. Every time I do Shawn P. Martin and 5 Things News when I'm trying to find that. And That's the first thing that well, actually, no. It used to be the world that popped up first, but now it's you. So you've surpassed your video. So congratulations,
Okay,
good
good.
sir.
I'm glad that I'm bigger than my video.
You're bigger than your video. You're bigger than the sum of your parts. So Google launched this product, which basically links Google Plus with Google Search. And a long, long time ago, we talked about Google Plus, how it was like step 12 and 136 step plan, that Stephen Levy article. We're like later in that plan.
They've been
Like
climbing the stairs for a while now.
Yeah, we're like at step 80. And everything is now much more obvious. Like, oh, now I understand Google Plus. They're trying to get into the social market by leveraging their search market, dominance. And that's where things have kind of gone awry with this, particularly in like the tech blog space. Online nerds talking about this.
People aren't happy about something changing on the internet.
I know. There's a great XKCD comic. I'll send it to you. You can include it in the show notes about this. So the issue here is about antitrust. If you've been following this or heard about it, you've probably heard the word antitrust brought up a lot. And that what Google is doing with this could be breaching antitrust laws. So what is antitrust?
Can you give us an example, Carter?
I can give you an example. I can give you a very apt example of the type of antitrust laws that Google may be breaking, and in fact are getting sued right now by the electronic. I've already forgotten.
Allegedly are breaking.
Blah blah blah. Right. So there are. I think when in the Lost podcast, I said there are like 2 different areas. Now I think that like if I was being more specific, there are 3 different areas of antitrust law. I went into a big definition of competition and whatever. Let's forget about that. Basically, antitrust. We don't need to do that. Antitrust laws are there to make sure that basically people don't use unfair advantages that are illegal to dominate a market. Okay, and most antitrust law is about like lying, being deceitful, using fraud to get an advantage in the marketplace. But there's a set of rules that basically govern what you can do with monopolies in other markets. And that's the type of antitrust law that Google is kind of running up against. And it's what you can't do is bundle or tie. The scholarly articles about this call it tying, but it's easier to think of bundling. So
they're very different terms.
They're right. Tying is whatever. It's like tying a shoe. Can't tie a shoe. Bundling, I think makes more sense. So the example I'm going to give is an example from the 90s. So our people who are around Shawn and my age or older will probably remember this. If not, this might be new to you. So back in the 90s, Microsoft owned like 98% of the personal computer marketplace in terms of operating systems. Everybody had Windows.
It seems like still pretty much almost everyone does, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, they've lost a significant amount of that space, and they're at like 95% now.
Yeah, it must hurt, Microsoft.
So they had a natural monopoly in that space because their product, Mac fans,
was everywhere.
Hold your tongues. They had a better product than the other products, right? They just dominated that market. It wasn't like they were lying, cheating, stealing, conniving. It's just that they had good relationships. They were able to push their product everywhere. They ran into a huge antitrust debacle, though, when they started bundling another product of theirs, Internet Explorer, with Windows. Internet Explorer is a web browser, and they didn't, which is a totally different product from their operating system.
Not essential to the operating system.
No, I mean today we might think that it is, but certainly in the 90s that was like, hey, this is like a different product. You sell Word and Excel separately, right? You don't bundle those. Like, what's going on with this Internet Explorer thing? That's what people are asking, and it became.
That's what Netscape Navigator was asking.
That is what Netscape was asking, and and that they used their competitive advantage with their operating system to crush Netscape Navigator. They utterly destroyed them. It was around for what, 2 years, 3 years as a big product, and Windows was like, no, we're going to bundle IE with every copy of Windows we sell. We're going to push it out everywhere, and everyone will use Internet Explorer 6 because we want that. We want everyone using our web services, and they got dinged hard by under antitrust laws because they were using their natural monopoly in operating systems to push another product of theirs down the throats of consumers.
It was way worse for them in the European Union, correct?
Yes. Yeah, the competition laws in the EU are much stricter than they are in the US. Yes. And it was a long drawn out process. They settled. They've also had other antitrust. Microsoft has run up against a lot of antitrust problems. So much so that they basically had to donate $250 million to Apple, to appease people, like, oh no, we're not trying to be evil, and bringing this back to Google, a lot of people in the biz think that they call themselves when they say don't be evil, what they're really saying is don't be Microsoft. don't be like those stupid faces.
They like to paint themselves as the rebels and the evil empire.
Right. Microsoft is the evil empire. Like IBM used to be the evil empire when it was IBM versus Apple, and now Microsoft is the evil empire against Google. Well, Google is turning into the evil empire because they're bundling Google Plus, which is a social product, with their search product. And there's already a complaint at the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, about this. And who knows where this is going to go, but that is what's going on there. And I agree with people who think that they are violating antitrust laws.
How many people are saying that they're not violating antitrust?
The only people who are saying that are Google.
It does not look good. I can't believe that they thought this would just go unnoticed.
Yeah, that's the other problem, the PR problem. Like Eric Schmidt had an interview where he just like ran circles around this journalist, like, no, how could people think that this is bad? Like, this is great for people. Like, I don't. He's
just trying to sell it to her.
Just trying to sell it. Just trying to sell this, sell a story that not only is this not violating antitrust, how could anyone think that this is violating antitrust laws? How could anyone think that this is unfair? And Twitter and Facebook, in big ways, have come out against this hard. And Google has claimed,
for obvious reasons.
Google has claimed that, oh well, what Google is basically claiming is that if Facebook and Twitter want to be a part of Plus Your World, they need to open up their entire data, everything, for Google to like go through and learn.
There have been plenty of rumors about Google acquiring Twitter, correct?
There have been.
Yeah.
And Apple acquiring Twitter.
Someone's going to buy it.
Potentially. I mean, Jack
And then
Dorsey,
that Saudi Arabian prince or whatever will be even richer.
Right. Well, so yeah, Jack Dorsey is the current CEO, and he has said multiple times very firmly, like, we are not selling Twitter. Twitter is our baby. We want to keep Twitter. Him and whatever, the other guy. The other guy who's at Square, the credit card reading thing. I'm going off the rails, Sean.
I don't know his name, so I can't help.
Going off the rails. I gotta pull this back. So they have come out and said, like, this is unfair. Like, we should be included in these results. We're social networks too. In fact, we're much bigger social networks than Google Plus. We're much more meaningful for people.
Yeah, Twitter's real-time search results are the most accurate that are available.
Yeah, and actually, oh man, I really got to stop doing this, but I'm going to do it. They bought a company that basically finds the 10 most important social stories that aren't like blather, stories that are important for you.
Uh-huh.
Twitter bought this company that used to just use Twitter's API, but they bought them, and they're gonna actually make a product that, if you want, will analyze like your trends and habits and send you like a daily digest of like 10 important things that happened today just for you. So yeah, Twitter obviously for me obviously it's much better than Google Plus. And for people who use Facebook, Facebook's been around so much longer than Google Plus, and there's so many more people on Facebook.
So established.
Yeah, it's got to be over 800 million compared to I think 50 million on Google Plus. We're talking an order of magnitude difference.
And the way that it has not gone away yet, I think means that it is not going away.
It's not. It's here.
It's a
here
part of so many people's lives. I hear people, I overhear people at work having conversations about Facebook. That's just back and forth like, did you see the photo that, oh yeah, oh, I saw that your status about going to the movie. How was the movie? Oh, it was great. I saw that you were going to see, like, it's just, they're not having a conversation. They're just talking about Facebook.
Right.
It's weird.
It's a part of their lives.
Right.
It's just they act that part of their life out online in a different space. There's that could be a whole podcast about like social networks. We don't need to, that is an area I can't touch because we'll be talking
when
for
we
hours.
do David Fincher movies, we'll watch Social Network and have that conversation.
Sure.
Down the line somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. If we can't do David Fincher movies, are you out of your mind? Can't talk about Seven on here.
What's in the box? Oh my god.
Of course we both say that. We're basically like the same person, but we live in different places and have slightly different lives.
Where are your clones?
Where are my clones? Yeah, I know. Oh man, rein it back in. Now you're the one taking us.
Sorry.
So Google is claiming that they can't use the data from Twitter or Facebook unless basically they get the keys to the castle.
Right.
They're not gonna give them that. That's insane to ask. And it's insane for them to say, because if you do site:/twitter.com or site:/facebook.com on Google, there are billions of pages stored in Google's servers. I think there are 3 billion hits if you do site:/twitter.com. That's like, give me all of the results from twitter.com. 3 billion, like it's there. They could get it, and they could use their own social algorithms to analyze it. They're just choosing not to. So that's what really is really dinging them. It's like, come on, you're making a ludicrous claim that you can't analyze these sites' data. You troll them daily, like you do, and you're prioritizing Google Plus because it's your product and you want people to use it. And in fact, what I find particularly annoying is when I search things. I haven't had something throw me off yet, but when the first results with Plus Your World come up, every time there's like this little bar that's like your profile is only 40% complete. It's like you need to finish your Google Plus work, son. And I'm like, what?
Give us the rest of your data. We'll keep it safe.
I don't trust them. Don't trust them.
Upload some photos. Who are your friends and family? What's your social security number?
Yes, I mean, that is what they want to own you. I would say that
Conglamo from Rocko's Modern Life.
Right. I would say like "Don't be evil" is like the most ironic like slogan they could have, because I think what they're doing right now is evil, precisely evil. Like they are trying to learn stuff about you so that they can increase
their ad targeting.
Right, they want to increase.
They want to sell you some purses and makeup.
To them, yeah, they are trying to. Like, I hate it. I hate it. I would rather pay for things. You know, I would rather the transaction be. This is my problem with it. This is my global problem with it. There's a transaction happening here, but it's opaque. I don't know what's going on. Whereas when I buy an app off of the App Store or off of the marketplace, it's like I pay $1.99 and I get this thing, right? I know what I'm paying for it. Whereas if you use Gmail or Google search or whatever, it's like there's some sort of monetary transaction happening, and it's between Google and advertisers, and I'm a part of it somehow, but I don't know. they're whoring me. Google is a pimp, and I'm
I
their
didn't want to
prostitute.
use that word. I knew that's where it was going.
I know. Well, that's the case. That's what's happening here. We were going to talk about iBooks, but I think we got to skip it and talk about the Hulk, and we'll talk about iBooks next week.
Yeah. Well, let's like throw it out there so that in case you've missed this news, Apple's going to completely turn the tables over in the textbook market, at least in the United States, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
They're developing new apps for. They have already developed new apps for textbook creation and distribution and things like student note taking and the way that they'll interact with the books on an OS device like an iPad.
Yep. It's pretty exciting. A lot of the books are capped at $15. So, when I went to college and I had to buy textbooks, they were like even used, they were like $150. So we're talking like an order of magnitude difference in the cost of textbooks, which is huge, huge news.
Yeah.
I've downloaded. You have to have a Mac to author these, so it's kind of like making an iOS app. I've downloaded iBooks Author. It is pretty slick, and the thing I thought of immediately was, boy, what a great tool for independent content distributors and producers in the style of like YouTube videos. Like, are people going to grab this product and start making short books that have lots of interactive components that are sort of like YouTube videos and publish them through the iBooks store?
I've already seen some kind of book. I don't know if it was an app or if it was actually like in the iBook app, but it was like a completely interactive kids book that did all kinds of like it had all kinds of bells and whistles. It was basically like a pop-up book for the 21st century.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I can see a huge space for this to be helpful in the technical manual area.
Oh yeah.
I know that sounds silly, but it's like being
Well, think
able
about
to...
Iron Man using that little like that computer screen that he's got that like pulls things apart and he can see inside machines and stuff.
Yep, exactly. Like anything technical, being able to include schematics and videos is going to be huge. I had another one where this would be really cookbooks. Cookbooks.
Yeah,
Something I thought of. Huge.
Any kind of instruction. Yeah, but anyway, we'll talk about that more next time.
We'll talk about that in like the education market, and I've watched most of the Apple event. It's really interesting how they framed all this. It's an interesting discussion, but we're going to talk about it another time. Today we're going to finish with Hulk.
Some big green guy.
Some big green dude or whatever. I mean, no, it was awesome. It was so exciting and great, and I loved it.
Oh, good.
So I have my I did not. I have my notes open here. So here's my first note. Immediate reaction before it even starts. I'm not going to like this, and it's 2 hours long. Great.
I turned to Alicia and said, because she watched, and said, will I like this more than I think I'm going to? And the answer was no.
The answer was no. I intentionally didn't look up Rotten Tomatoes, scores, reviews, anything on this because, like...
I did not either.
I wanted to see it fresh, and within the first, like, seconds, I was like, nope, don't like it.
The first several minutes were awful. They were terrible. Why did they start the movie with a really bad, rushed-looking montage?
Science montage over the credits, or under the credits.
It was like, here's the origin story as quick as we can tell it.
Well, I looked it up afterwards. Apparently, they did film an entire origin story, but they were like, let's just no.
Cut to the chase.
Yeah, they tell his entire origin story under the credits.
With like CSI sounding music.
Right. And I know that this is totally random. I'm throwing it out there because I'm that guy. His chair that they use in the credits, it is supposed to look like the chair that not Lou Ferrigno. I don't know who played the non-Hulk version of the guy in the TV series.
Right.
It's supposed to look like that chair, but to me, what it looked more like, I don't know if you've seen this or anyone in the world has seen it. It looked like the contraption that they had Linda Blair in The Exorcist 2 when they were experimenting on her.
Someone else will have to confirm. I don't know.
In fact, I think that it was modeled off of that because were a lot of, this is super weird, and I might be reading into this like way too much. I felt like there were a lot of parallels to like 1970s and 80s horror movies in here, not like thematically or structurally, but just like I would see little things and I'd be like, that reminds me of blah.
Little homages somehow.
Yeah, so like when we first see Ed Norton in Brazil, he's like sitting in a very dark room with a light on him with a metronome
Yeah.
in like full lotus position. That it has to be a riff on the opening of Hellraiser.
I was just gonna say that. Even I've only seen that one time. I know so little about that series, but as soon as you actually described it, I immediately thought of it.
It has, and there were more. I'm not going to mention any more of them, but like I felt like the director maybe has like a heart for those movies and wanted to like take some of those scenes and put them in.
It's a weird kind of genre blending, if that's what he was doing.
Or I'm crazy, and I'm
Or
just
you're
like,
nuts.
I'm totally insane. Yeah, well, my third note is, wait, it's the Hulk already? What? He's the Hulk now. What's going on?
Right. It kind of felt like we were in a sequel. Like we were picking up after Empire Strikes Back, and we were like, oh, everything's screwed right now, and he's like on the run.
Right. Apparently the director, Louis Leterrier, I don't know.
I'm sure it's Louis.
Louis, whatever, Lou.
He's French.
Louis. He said that he wanted to do it this way. Like, yeah, people know the Hulk story. Let's just like start doing something. And I'm like, no. I didn't know the Hulk story.
If he had done that, if he had skipped the origin and told an interesting part of the Hulk story, I probably would have been okay with it. But the part of the story that they decided to tell, I was not overwhelmed with. The whole plot, I was just like, this could have been so much different and better.
It was boring. I was bored throughout this entire movie. And I think the problem was I didn't know who the bad guy was. I felt like am I supposed to not like the army?
Yeah.
Are they the bad guys?
Yeah.
What's his name? The British guy, is he a bad guy? He's kind of, what's going on? And then he finally is the bad guy at the end when he's whatever, Abomination. But it's like that was in like the last 20 minutes. So there's like an hour and 40 minutes of like what's going on?
I'm kind of confused about how this is it seems like such a public event, and where's Agent Coulson and Nick Fury on this one? Like, they're in this universe, they gotta know what's going on.
Really bad editing decisions were made. Like the Wikipedia, if it's to be believed, claims that there was much greater SHIELD involvement.
Okay.
That was cut.
Well,
that was totally cut.
I missed it after seeing Iron Man and knowing what goes on in Thor. Since I've already seen it, I know how much SHIELD stuff is going on. I was really confused about why it was lacking here.
Yeah, something that confused me is I felt that the army in The Incredible Hulk is really different from the army in Iron Man.
It feels kind of like a G.I. Joe army.
Yeah. Yeah. They're just very different, and I'm like, but it's supposed to be the same.
They're firing like a 50 caliber high-powered rifle over the skies of New York City or whatever, like
right,
possibly into civilian buildings.
Yeah,
they definitely seemed evil. You're right.
Unbelievable compared to the Iron Man army, I think, and I'm just gonna put this out there. William Hurt's mustache was like out of control.
I did not recognize him for about 10 minutes. I did not know that he was in the movie. I missed the credit whenever it went by at the beginning. And I was looking at him, I was like, I feel like that guy is just like, it's just jumping out at me, and I have no idea. And finally, I heard his voice a certain way, and I was like, that's William Hurt. What? What is that on his face?
You couldn't tell it was William Hurt because he had there was another character on his face, and it was the mustache. I'm just picking. I'm gonna probably pick a lot of nits because I didn't like the movie, but I want everyone to. I want it to be clear that I didn't like this movie because of the plot and the movie, and that it's not all the little nitpicky things.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna pick them because I don't like this movie, and I feel like throwing like lobs at it. And the first lob I'm gonna say is Edward Norton looked like a little China doll.
I really think that I have a feeling that Mark Ruffalo will make a much better fit as Bruce Banner. He's the right kind of... I think he's the right kind of character actor for it.
Possibly. I think so. I mean, I know what they were going for. You know, he's like a little weak kind of... He's sort of like Spider-Man,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
But I just thought he just looked like a little baby. Like, it's like, you can't. How are you working in a plant? Like, you're gonna get beat up by these. How did he last in that plant that long without ever getting into a fight with those Brazilians? Although the one thing about this movie, the only thing about this movie that I liked was all of the sweeping shots of Brazil. I thought were beautiful.
Yeah.
Like going up the hill. I've never seen wherever they were in Brazil before, filmed, I guess. And I've never been there. Like
sure?
They had like I don't know, maybe another life. Well, if Nietzsche's right, and I go to Brazil in the future, you know, I've been there every time. You know, I've been there infinite
over and
times. Over and over again. But yeah, the like sweeping tracking shot, like up a hill, like it's just like houses and houses and houses, all these different colors, and the lighting was amazing. You know, it's just like Brazil is beautiful. It seems like if you take cameras there, you get great stuff. So I liked that. Other than that, I thought that I didn't like anything.
So good setting.
Good setting. Good setting. I sort of feel like I just saw someone's really bad play, and I'm like, well, the lighting was good, and I liked the costumes.
You gotta have something good to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fight sequences I felt really weighed it down when I'll compare it to a good comic book movie. In Iron Man 2, there are like 3 or 4 major action sequences, and they're all broken up by like all kinds of things. They're broken up by story points and exposition. They're broken up by comedy, all kinds of different moves to keep the plot moving and interesting. And when they would switch into fight mode in the Hulk, it was just you were just fighting for a really long time. Big
Yeah.
CGI things being thrown at each other for a while. No laughs, just hard hits.
Yeah, one thing I would say between the Iron Man movies and this is that the Iron Man movies didn't take themselves too seriously, whereas I think that Hulk didn't take itself seriously enough in a lot of ways. Like, they were just phoning. Like, I thought that there was a lot of comedy in this movie, and that it was too much. It was just, and mostly, and also it wasn't funny.
Like when he was mistranslating his "you wouldn't want to make me angry." I was like,
you wouldn't like me when I'm hungry. Haha.
That's not that funny.
It's not. And like, oh, and Liv Tyler was just horrible.
Does she not know how to speak above a whisper for some reason?
Oh my god, she was just so bad. So bad.
Very weak character. Very uninteresting character.
Right. I in my notes, I have at 14 minutes and 26 seconds. That's how long it took me to type, I'm really bored right now. 14 minutes. And 5 of those were the credits. And I just... Nothing. They didn't give you anything. There's nothing that you could latch onto. Like, Ed Norton's character is not... I don't think is very likable because he's so weak and, like... You know, it's just like, oh, your life is pathetic. And Liv Tyler is boring, and her dad is just like a piece of cardboard. Like, why are you doing this stuff? He's just like, I'm a general. Like, I am Army. Rawr. And then what's Abomination's name? I don't know what his name. Blonsky. I'm like, who are you? Like, you're supposed to be like the baddest of all bad guys. Like, you're a big badass, you know, Royal British Commando, and you look like you don't even look like you could take on Edward Norton. He's like tiny. He's like a little terrier. You know, it's like rah, rah, rah. Like what is going on here?
That's why he's got to transform into the big thing.
And it was, why did he want to become that? Why did he agree to any of these things? I didn't understand his motivations whatsoever.
Yeah, where did he think that that path was going to end?
Right? It was just sort of like, I have to be the bad guy now because there's no bad guy in this movie, and we should probably have that.
He just went mad with power, and he had no end game.
Exactly. Although I knew he was going to die immediately because he shot the dog in Brazil. Like, you can't shoot a
Yeah,
dog.
right.
You can't
That
shoot a
can't
dog.
go by. Yeah, like in Iron Man, all the bad guys are trying to do something. Like even Justin Hammer's, I said on a video or somewhere, his prime motivation is to get into the Pentagon. He wants to work for the American government. Like that's his ultimate goal.
Yeah, he wants to be the Secretary of Defense
Yeah.
because it's awesome. And
That's an awesome goal for a supervillain to have.
right? It's Justin Hammer is such a much more interesting character because he's kind of effete, which is always fun, like in a bad guy.
Yeah.
He is like classy, smart, has a huge amount of money in a fairly believable way. He's a defense contractor, and he's kind of a a, a D word. He's like, I don't want to say it. It's just like, God, I don't really like you. You're a jerk.
Yeah.
It's like, I whereas like, who, what can you say about the bad guys in this movie? Like literally, I don't know. They're there.
They're one-dimensional.
They're completely one-dimensional. Completely one-dimensional. The Lou Ferrigno as the door guard thing I thought was funny, but it's like, yeah, and they did it for like 2 minutes. Way too much. It was like, you know,
They're like,
it was like
Lou
too much, guys.
Ferrigno's in this movie. He's in this movie. Look, there he is.
It's like they wanted to like put like a subtitle or something like, "Hey everyone, it's Lou Ferrigno."
Having said that though, I do wish that more of Stan Lee's cameos involved him dying.
I know. I wrote in my notes. I think this is his longest cameo. He even had a word.
Yeah, that's definitely the longest one I've seen in any of these Marvel movies.
Right. I think it's hilarious that he was the one that got the Hulk blood.
Yeah, that was great.
How did Bruce not notice like a foot next to him, a big red look like red paint?
He was
on a-
so concerned, and he was not thorough at all.
No. What?
Come
I
on,
don't
Bruce, you're supposed to be a scientist, man.
Here's a note that like we've basically covered, but like this was so apparent. I noticed it in the movie. Like there was no, I didn't even need to reflect. There's a lot of backstory that got glossed over, and I think that might have impacted whether I cared what was happening.
Okay.
Like I didn't really care about Bruce and Betty, but maybe if I had seen them together, and it hadn't been played by Liv Tyler, but maybe if I had seen them together, like in love and working together, and then there's this tragic event that happens, if I had seen it, maybe I'd care if they got back together, but I didn't.
They
I'm
should
like,
have thrown the intro out, not done it at all. They could have still picked up where they did, and then just include like painful flashbacks to give you the hint of what happened and give it to you in pieces and let you put it together.
Well, that's an interesting thing that you say because that's how Ang Lee did it in Hulk, and they didn't want to feel like they were copying him.
Oh, okay. I did not know that, and I've never seen that.
Yeah. So apparently Louis Leterrier felt that he needed to make the movie really different from Hulk because he didn't want to seem like he was copying Ang Lee, and he told the producers, I don't think I can copy Ang Lee. He's a much better director than I am. I don't think I can like mimic his style successfully.
Wowee.
And they're like, yeah, and they're like, no, don't make it different. We want it to be really different. This is a reboot. We're Avengers. Do it different.
Yep. It was very successful. It worked. It was financially successful.
It was financially successful. So all of the stuff that we're talking about, I have like all these notes in a row that just sum up everything. So I have God, Bruce and Betty are so awkward. Does anything at all work in this movie? I don't think so. The army is more sinister than in Iron Man. What's the deal with that? And then who is the bad guy? And then my final note, CGI in this movie looks terrible.
For me, it started not so bad and moved to worse as it went.
Yeah, I thought that the reason for that is because whenever he transformed in the early parts of the movie, it was like in a dark building or with like, you know, stuff so you couldn't really see him.
Uh-huh.
But when he was out in the light, like it was like, ooh, you look really this doesn't look good.
I have a feeling the effects will be ramped up overall in the Avengers for everyone.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, it's been years since it's been like it'll have been like 3 years since that movie effects have, you know,
Even in that short time, they've moved.
they've gotten yeah. Although they did spend $150 million to make that movie, to make Incredible
And
Hulk,
probably $100 million to market it.
probably, and they made 320, so it wasn't super successful.
It also made $60 million in DVD sales.
Oh, well, that's fair. That's fine. And they made
I'm sure
$10 from
I'm
Eli.
sure they view it as a success.
It was basically a financial success, but it was not a success like Iron Man was
No.
at all, in any way, in any of the ways. And I like it's unfair to compare it to Iron Man, but I think you have to. It's like part of this whole thing. It happened like right after Iron Man. They're linked at the end with Tony Stark, like, and it is so it's so bad compared to Iron Man.
I cannot
So
imagine that. I have not seen Captain America, but I'm going to say that this has got to be the low point of these films leading into the Avengers.
gotta be right. Has to be.
I've heard so many good things about Captain America at this point, and I know that Thor is better.
Right. The one thing that I'm starting to notice about the Avengers movies, is that they all of the characters or all of the franchises have like a thing. So like, there's Bruce Banner's blood. That's obviously like his thing.
Yeah.
Like they're setting up the next villain, who's played by what's his name, Tim Blake Nelson, who was in Oh Brother Where Art Thou,
Yes.
which I couldn't help think of. I'm like, oh gosh, it's
He finally, I never hear him have like a neutral American accent, and he had one in this movie.
right. They're setting him up to be the big bad, which I'm going to ask Shawn to define for us here at the end because we've used it several times without defining it. They're setting him up to be the big bad in the sequel to Hulk, and you could miss it in Hulk. It was just like a throwaway scene when Blonsky gets turned into his Hulk form. There's what's his name? Dr. Stearns.
Samuel Stearns.
Samuel Stearns. He gets a cut on his head. He has a cut on his head, and some of Bruce's blood drips into it, and you can sort of see his head like getting bigger. And
Yeah.
there's like there's a discussion between him and Banner about Banner's blood. Like, it has limitless applications. Like, you could use it for anything. So like that's his thing in his franchise. And there's like Tony Stark's tech. Like, that's his stuff. That's like or like his power. Like, there's Thor's hammer, and then there's Captain America's shield. Like, each one of them has like a sort of unique thing that's theirs.
Yeah.
That, as opposed to, I'm thinking of like some DC comics where it's like Superman has lots of powers, and it's sort of like his person. And Batman, like, he has lots of things.
Whatever he can develop for himself.
Right. It's like it's like their entire personality. It's like their entire character is their power, really.
Yeah.
Whereas it's like, no, Bruce Banner has super blood, and Tony Stark has technology, and Thor has a hammer, and Captain America has a shield.
I happened to click on Samuel Stearns on Wikipedia, and his character is a supervillain called the Leader.
Mm-hmm.
He's been around since 1964.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
I love seeing how far back these stories go. It's insane. It's like a soap opera character.
They all are. They all are. When you were talking about Pepper Potts and Happy,
right,
about how their whole, like,
they have a decades-long legacy of a relationship.
Which we just see, like, we see this, well, obviously they're not doing that, but, like, you just see, like, little teeny bits of that in these superhero movies. Like, tiny, like, oh, there's the Leader. Oh, here's this little thing, here's Justin Hammer.
I'm glad that they don't really hammer it into you. They're not like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, look at that, look at that. If you know about it, or if you look at it later, you can see that it's there, but it's not shoved in your face.
Right. I think they were very successful with that in the Iron Man movies, and I think that they have had some. Well, not they. The DC guys have had some success of doing that with Spider-Man. That there's obviously very complex characters like um, JJ, what's his name, the newspaper guy, and
Oh
like his
yeah.
secretary, and like they have huge histories, like, and they sort of hint at like stuff that has happened or will happen. Peter's professor, who ends up being the Lizard Man, like all that stuff, like they just sort of hint at that stuff. They don't like
Every Superman movie has some kind of Jimmy Olsen stuff, but they don't hint at everything that's happened with him.
right, exactly. Exactly. So Sean, let's finish off with the big bad. Do you want to tell us what big bad is? What's a big bad?
I want to look it up, but I want to say that the term itself is from Joss Whedon. Do you know if that is true?
I think it's from Buffy. Yeah.
It is from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Buffy had it had an awesome couple first seasons, and then I forget which season it was. It might have been somewhere between 3 and 5. They had a season where it seemed more like a villain of the week kind of plot instead of like a season 1 was the master returned and she had to defeat like the oldest vampire that ever was. And season 2 had another big I almost said it, another big bad guy that lasted the whole season. And then they had these week seasons where kind of episode of the week happened. And then they did it again and brought back a season-long bad guy, and I think that was when one of the Scooby Gang, which is another like term that people use for other things, other shows now, the Scooby Gang referred to him as the big bad, as in the big bad wolf, like the biggest enemy that there is right now.
Right. Sean will include this in the show notes in the link dump. I have the TV tropes page for Big Bad. So if you want to like see the like an in-depth definition and the history of the word, and then examples from everything like anime, comic books, literature, video games, it's all there. Love TV tropes. But their definition is of a big bad is it's the wolf, the witch, the giant, the dragon. It's the thing at the end that it's the boss in a video game.
It's Voldemort. Right? It's the Emperor.
Yep. Because like Darth Vader is a bad guy, but he's not the big bad.
Right.
The Emperor is the big bad. He might be the big bad in Star Wars, but he's definitely not in like the series. The big bad is the Emperor.
Right.
Saruman is a bad guy in Tolkien, but the big bad is Sauron. He is.
Don't mix those up, kids. One's an eye, one's a being.
One is an eyeball that floats atop of a tower, and another one is a guy who used to play Dracula in Hammer horror movies in the 70s. Yeah. So yes, that's maybe added something to your vocabulary. Big bad. I actually didn't know it was a Joss Whedon thing until TV trips.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I was watching.
Heard it used.
I think I was watching Buffy, and I was going along with the Buffy wiki as I was watching it because the wiki is so detailed and interesting. And I think that just came up as I was watching, like, oh, here's the first appearance of the term big bad, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, isn't that interesting? And then that worked its way into my vocabulary.
I don't know if I've said this before, but I have not seen an episode of Buffy.
Yeah, you're pretty much a Joss Whedon virgin.
Yeah, I had a girlfriend for like a minute in college who tried to get me to watch Dollhouse. Is that something?
Mm-hmm.
Dollhouse?
Yeah.
I watched maybe 10 minutes of that and I fell asleep. And then
2 seasons on Fox and then they canceled it.
I've seen Dr. Horrible.
That's excellent, of course.
This is sort of like saying, it's like, I've seen the Clone Wars, but I haven't seen any of the Star Wars movies.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to... If you want to like get invested in Buffy, you really want to like try and commit to the whole thing. And I feel bad because I still haven't watched part of the last season. And if I did that, I would want to read the comics because essentially the comics are the 8th season of the show.
Do you have to watch Angel as well? Is that?
I've watched 3 seasons. I should really just watch the rest of that too. There's so much crossover between their plots that I was trying to keep up with them in time, and I actually did get 1 season ahead on Buffy. Angel was really good. At times, Angel was better than Buffy.
Okay.
So you're missing out, but it is
it on
quite an
Netflix?
investment.
Is it on Netflix? Do you know?
I don't think so, but I know it's on Hulu Plus.
I have that. I just don't think I can commit to.
Firefly is on Netflix.
Is that Joss Whedon too? He's prolific.
You are killing me right now. Firefly is Joss Whedon and Tim Minear. Tim Minear has produced 24, and he recently produced. Was it Game of Thrones or something? It's something like amazing and award-winning. But yeah,
Tim
Firefly
Minear
is Joss Whedon's sci-fi cowboy baby.
Tim Minear did something on what you call it, American Horror Story.
That's
did
right.
Birth.
He did American Horror Story.
He did Birth.
He was a consulting producer on every episode,
producer.
I think, and,
Yeah, and
he
he
wrote and
wrote two.
directed. Did he direct at least one? He might have.
I don't know, but he wrote Halloween Part 2, I'm learning, and Birth. I know he wrote Birth because
Okay.
we mentioned that.
So yeah,
sorry.
Firefly is a smaller investment. If you, I mean, you could knock that out pretty quickly. 13 episodes.
Firefly's on streaming.
Yep.
I'm just confirming that Buffy the Vampire... Oh, Buffy the Vampire Slayer is on streaming.
Oh, look at that! I didn't know.
And Angel. Interesting, pulling it up, Netflix thinks that I would give it a 4.5. And my bigger metric, the average of 2 million ratings is 3.9, so they think I would like it much better than most people.
Okay.
Still don't think I'm going to watch it, though. I might do Firefly.
You should. You should.
All right.
I've
well-
watched it like 6 times. The whole series.
6? 6?
Yep.
You're kidding me.
I've seen the movie probably 4 times.
There's a movie?
Okay, boy. Okay, so Firefly was
We
on
should end
Fox
this.
in 2002, and they aired it out of order, and they basically just like ground it into the ground. They hit it as hard as they could, and it didn't get back up. And then it was canceled, and the internet did what the internet does and started petitions and all this stuff, and it was very clear within a couple months that there was no... It was like Curb Your Enthusiasm. There was not enough... Fox didn't care. Fox was like, take your little sci-fi show and go away. We don't want you. And so it didn't go anywhere, and they started trying to raise money for it, and Universal took an interest and said... we might be willing to produce this if you can get the rights away from Fox. And Fox said, we're not letting go of the TV rights, screw you. But if you want to make a movie, you go ahead. And Universal did. And there's a 13-episode series, and then there's a film that basically, I mean, it leaves a lot of things open, basically so that they could write comic books. But it basically wraps up a lot of the stuff that goes on in the series. He said the thing that happens in the movie would have been the end of the 2nd season of the show.
Has he done anything else that if I don't know about, you'll be upset with me?
I don't know. Dollhouse is okay. It got canceled before it could get much traction. And then he's co-written some movies, but you've seen them, like Toy Story.
Right. I just feel like I'm letting you down.
I'm really surprised you did not know Firefly was him.
Oh boy, I only vaguely know
You're not an
that
internet person at all, are you?
I'm masquerading as an internet person. Like I think what's worse is that I only vaguely know that if you said like, hey, do you know about Firefly? I'd be like, yeah, it's like space and the guy from Captain Hammer's in it.
Yeah.
That's it. That is my extent of my knowledge of it. I don't know anything about it.
Space Western.
That is something I didn't know. Now I know that.
You will recognize plots from Western films in the episodes. They're not at all shy about it.
You're basically saying that I'm going to watch this.
Good.
Well, can I just say that I was a little older when Firefly came out, and probably wouldn't have taken notice of it.
Oh,
if
I
I'd
didn't
been
notice it. I didn't know anything about him. I saw the movie because my friend wanted to see it, and I was like, "Cool, space, whatever. Yeah, let's go." And I saw the movie, and I was like, "This is amazing!" And then I went back and learned everything about Joss Whedon.
Right. I mean, like, if I had been like 10 or 11 when it came out, maybe I would have been like more interested. Like,
You wouldn't
I
have
don't-
found
I'm
it because it was buried in the broadcast schedule.
Yeah, I'm making excuses. I really liked Farscape. That's a space show from around the similar time. That was on Sci-Fi and was great. Okay,
Yeah, if he would have been on
we gotta end it.
Sci-Fi, he would have continued probably. I don't know why.
If it had been on Sci-Fi, I would have noticed it and known about it and seen it. 'Cause
So would
we're on
have the million people that would have kept it on the air.
Exactly, and it wouldn't have been canceled. Like Farscape got canceled eventually, but it got canceled after 4 seasons, and they still got a movie. 4 seasons in a movie compared to 14 episodes, and like that's, come on, Fox, like, and also Fox, like, if you're a develop. By the way, the podcast is basically over, and we're just talking again. If you're a development team, don't you just know that if Fox is like, why don't you try to do something here, that they're gonna cancel you? They cancel like 95% of their stuff.
Yep.
Right?
Family
You
Guy
just
made a
know.
great crack about that when they returned for the second time. They said that they had to be canceled to make room in the programming schedule for all great shows and then he just listed about 100 shows that Fox has canceled since they went off the air.
Yeah, I remember that joke. And I will say that one of them actually what I did really like, and that's Dark Angel. Did you see that?
No, but I know what it is.
Yeah, it was only 2 seasons, I think, just 2 seasons, and I liked it a lot. It was really good. It had Jessica Alba. And
Yes,
James
that's
Cameron.
why I knew what it was.
Well, there you go. Yeah, Jessica Alba was the main character, and she was
She was
she was in
Jessica
that,
Alba?
and she was definitely Jessica Alba in that, and James Cameron created it.
Yeah.
It was like all cyberpunky. It was great. I liked it a lot.
Well, Fox
And it was set in-
Fox likes their
it was set-
trigger finger.
Yeah, it was set in Seattle, which was like cool. I liked that it was in Seattle. I always liked episodes of the X-Files that took place in the Pacific Northwest. I always liked them.
See,
more.
there's a show that I've missed out on that I really should get into. We've each got our downfalls in the TV watching department.
I think that Joss Whedon is now culturally important to geeks enough that it is a bad thing that I don't know a lot about him. But I think, like, between your age and the things you like, the fact that you don't know a lot about X-Files is like pretty bad.
Yeah, I
X-Files.
think I've watched I think I watched the first, at least half of the first season.
And the first season isn't even like the really good stuff.
Yeah, and
First-
I've seen enough of later seasons, at least clips, to know that it gets way better, which is why I wanted to get there, but I never did.
It really fizzled for me. I mean, I was so into it. The fourth season, the movie, and then the fifth season. I think that's how it went, or maybe it was the fifth.
I
the
did
movie,
see
then the
that
sixth.
movie.
Movie was actually not bad.
I liked the movie.
Movie's pretty good. It's on streaming if you guys want to see it. The follow-up movie that they did in like 2005 was like pretty weak.
I have not seen that
Pretty
one.
weak sauce. Scully finds Fox and stuff. It's just like really it's weird. But yeah, it definitely went downhill when Fox went missing, and they brought in the T-1000. What's that guy's name?
Patrick?
Patrick.
Is it?
Whatever.
Is
Yeah.
his last name Patrick?
I don't know. Looking him up right now.
T-1000.
The T-1000. Robert Patrick.
Robert Patrick.
Robert Patrick. They brought him on as a replacement male lead, and it went downhill fast after they lost Fox.
Yikes.
And Fox Mulder is one of the most interesting characters on TV ever. He's fascinating.
Oh yeah, he was great. So
there's this whole
we're just completely we are off the rails at this point.
We're off the rails. We gotta end it because I'll start talking about X-Files.
We didn't even go that long. That's why I didn't need to reel it around. But now we're doing it. So for next time, we're watching Thor.
Go watch Thor.
Go watch Thor. Is that on streaming or is it not?
It is not.
Damn it.
None of them are.
Yeah, at
Iron
this
Man
point
2.
we're out of luck. Iron Man was all we got.
Sorry, kids. I'm sure they're all available for a very small fee on Amazon Instant, and I think you can rent a lot of them on iTunes for like $2.
All right, that's it.
That's it. Done. Donezo.